From multiple days of significant severe weather across the Great Plains into the Midwest, to a tropical storm and a potential future tropical storm, bringing heavy rainfall and strong winds to portions of southern Mexico and Central America. This is your Tornado weather forecast for June 8th, 2026. First of all, looking at the current day 1 SPC severe weather outlook for today, you can see we currently have a slight risk of severe weather from southeastern Wyoming and northeastern Colorado back into eastern Kansas. We also have a marginal risk of severe weather across portions of a mid-Mississippi River Valley. For today, we do have a 5% tornado risk, mainly across northeastern Colorado, and we do have a Sig 1 area across northeastern Colorado and a sliver of northwestern Kansas where we can see a few tornadoes this afternoon with an isolated strong tornado or two as well. We also have a 2% tornado risk extending further into western and southern Nebraska, back into central Kansas as well, and we also have a small 2% tornado risk across western Kentucky, southwestern Indiana, and southern Illinois where we can see an isolated tornado sometime this afternoon or evening. For damaging wind risk for today, we have a 15% damaging wind risk today across northeastern Colorado and western and central Nebraska back into eastern Kansas. We also have a Sig 1 area across northeastern Colorado, southern Nebraska, and northern Kansas where some wind gusts could reach over 75 miles an hour this afternoon. And for hail risk, we do have a 15% hail risk across southeastern Wyoming, northeastern Colorado, western Nebraska, back into northern Kansas, and we do have a Sig 1 area across the western Nebraska area, back into northwestern Kansas, and northeastern Colorado, where some hail could reach up to the size of baseballs this afternoon, and we do have a large 5% hail risk, mainly from the eastern Texas Panhandle, back into eastern Nebraska and Kansas, all the way into north central Minnesota, where we can see some isolated large hail this afternoon. Now, looking at the day 2 severe weather outlook, which is for tomorrow, you can see we have an enhanced risk of severe weather across north central and northeastern South Dakota, and central and eastern North Dakota, and northwestern Minnesota, and our slight risk extends from western North Dakota and western Minnesota back into central Nebraska and western Kansas. For our tornado risk tomorrow, we have a 10% tornado risk across central and eastern North Dakota. Our 5% tornado risk is across a sliver of central North Dakota back into northeastern South Dakota and northwestern Minnesota. And we do have a 2% tornado risk for a sliver of western North Dakota, central and eastern South Dakota, and western Minnesota, and we have a Sig 1 area across mainly eastern and central North Dakota back into north central South Dakota where a few strong tornadoes could occur tomorrow. For wind risk, you can see we have a 30% wind risk across northwestern Minnesota, eastern North Dakota, and northeastern South Dakota, and we have a Sig 1 area across northwestern Minnesota, eastern North Dakota, and also a sliver of northeastern South Dakota as well. And our 15% risk area extends from western and central North Dakota and western Minnesota back into central Nebraska and western Kansas, and we also have another Sig 1 area across central and eastern Nebraska back into north central Kansas where we can see some damaging wind gusts up to 75 to 80 miles an hour, same as our other Sig 1 area as well. And for hail risk tomorrow, you can see we have a small 45% hail risk across central North Dakota. Our 30% hail risk also extends across eastern and central North Dakota back into north central South Dakota, and our 15% hail risk extends from northwestern Kansas back into western North Dakota and also western and central Minnesota. And if we do get a Sig 2 area, that would be an upgrade to a moderate risk of severe weather for hail, but right now we just have a Sig 1 area from western into eastern North Dakota into central Nebraska, where we could see some hail up to the size of baseballs tomorrow. Now looking at the day 3 severe weather outlook, which this is for Wednesday, you can see we have an enhanced risk of severe weather across southeastern Minnesota, much of Wisconsin, northwestern Illinois, and eastern Iowa, and we have a slight risk of severe weather across most of Minnesota, back into western Michigan, all the way into northern Missouri, and as well as northeastern Kansas. Looking at our probabilistic outlook, you can see we have the risk areas there, and we also have a SIG-1 area across much of the Great Lakes area and 2 portions of the Midwest and the Central Great Plains as well. Going down to their discussion, you can see they're talking about scattered to numerous severe storms capable of large to very large hail. Tornadoes and damaging winds with significant gusts appear likely across portions of the upper Mississippi Valley and Midwest Wednesday afternoon and tonight. More sporadic occurrences of large hail and damaging winds are possible into the Great Plains. You can see we're mainly talking about some pretty good dew points, some steep lapse rates. We're also talking about some strong deep layer shear, and there could be some supercells and bowing structures with the cape and shear parameter space. And there could be some large to very large hail as the initial hazard, with a threat for damaging winds and tornadoes increasing as storms move into Wisconsin, eastern Iowa, and northwest Illinois, where there's going to be stronger low-level shear, so make sure you watch out for future updates on my channel. Now look at the day 4 for rate severe weather outlook. This is the day 4 outlook, which this is for Thursday. Our 30% risk area extends from northeastern Missouri back into southwestern Michigan and southern Wisconsin. Our 15% risk area extends from eastern Kansas and northeast Oklahoma back into much of Michigan and northwestern Ohio. Going down into the discussion, you can see we're talking about an active period severe weather from the upper Great Lakes into the Ozark Plateau. We're talking about good agreement in depicting a potent shortwave and a upper and mid-level jet. We're talking about a pretty good mid-level jet. There will be a deepening surface low that is expected to develop from central Iowa into the southern upper peninsula of Michigan during the day, with a very moist air mass which is expected to reside to the south of the surface front, with the presence of a 50 to 70 knot mid-level jet attending the shortwave trough, and that will lead to a corridor of enhanced tornado potential which could develop along and south of the surface low track from eastern Iowa and northern Illinois into central and southern Wisconsin, and this will be dictated by the location of the effective surface boundary. Now look at the National Hurricane Center's website. You can see we have an area to watch for development. It is just off the coast of portions of Central America. If we go down to their discussion, you can see they are currently talking about the system is Invest 92E, which we're saying showers and thunderstorms continue to show signs of organization in association with a low pressure area offshore of Central America. Environmental conditions appear conducive for further development of the system, and a tropical depression is likely to form during the next day or so, while the system slowly moves northward then northwestward towards the coast of Central America. Interest along the Pacific coast of northwestern Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala should monitor the progress of the system, as heavy rainfall and life-threatening flash flooding are possible through the middle portion of this week. For additional information, including gale warnings, please see the high seas forecast issued by the National Weather Service. So you can see if in the next 48 hours and the next 7 days, it has a 90% chance of development. It could form as early as this afternoon, so make sure you pay attention to my forecast for future updates, and especially the National Hurricane Center for future updates. Next, look at the forecast advisory for Tropical Storm Boris. You can see right now is at 35 knots, which is 40 miles an hour, with gusts all the way up to 45 knots, which is 50 miles an hour, with a pressure of 1,002 millibars. This is going to cause some heavy flooding in portions of southern Mexico, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but it is expected to stay at this strength through landfall. It's going to stay at 35 knots, 40 miles an hour, with gusts up to 50 miles an hour, and then as it moves inland, over the next day or so, it will weaken into a tropical depression, actually a post-tropical / inland depression, with winds of only 25 knots, which is only 30 miles an hour, with gusts up to 40 miles an hour, and then tomorrow afternoon it will have dissipated, so this system will not last much longer. Now, look at the forecast track for Tropical Storm Boris. You can see right now it's just located south of the south-central coast of Mexico there. It's going to continue to slowly move north through this afternoon and make landfall sometime early this afternoon as a tropical storm. You can see it has a relatively small wind field, but its main hazard will be flooding, which again we'll talk about in a minute, but you can see eventually it'll start to shift westward and move inland and eventually weaken due to the mountains, and then by early tomorrow morning, if even tomorrow morning at all, it will likely already have dissipated. So I probably won't have another update on the system at all, but just in case, make sure you pay attention to future weather forecasts on my channel. Next, look at the rainfall forecast for Tropical Storm Boris. You can see the heaviest rainfalls expected across mainly portions just near the south-central coast of Mexico, where some areas could see 8 to 12 inches of rain, which is 200 to 300 millimeters of rain, but most areas will see anywhere from 4 inches, which is 100 millimeters, all the way up to 8 inches, which is 200 millimeters, so it's not looking like there's going to be a lot of rain, but this still could cause some landslides across portions of Guerrero and Oaxaca. I probably butchered those names, but I tried my best. But we could also see some widespread flooding from 1 inch, which is 25 millimeters, to 4 inches, which is 100 millimeters across a widespread area. So make sure you pay attention to future National Hurricane Center forecasts in case things change, as things could obviously change. The system could shift a little west or shift a little east. Next, look at some of our weather models, starting with the HRRR. This is at 0Z on Tuesday, which is actually late this evening. You can see as I go forward, you can see there's only some isolated storms across portions of southwestern South Dakota and portions of Minnesota. And as we go early in the morning, there's really nothing popping up other than a few isolated showers. However, as we go later into the afternoon, you can see a few early storms there, which could bring a low severe weather threat, but nothing too significant. And by the time we get to the 21Z time frame, you can see we have some supercells starting to fire in northwestern South Dakota and western North Dakota, and the supercells eventually move east. We even have some supercells across portions of southern Canada there and western Canada. I don't know what province that is, but there could be a pretty significant tornado for that there as well. And eventually these supercells move east as well. You can see some decent supercells up in Canada. Those could bring a high tornado for it as well. But in North Dakota and South Dakota, you can see some supercells mixed with a linear segment there. And eventually these storms all move east into Minnesota, bringing a tornado threat, but mainly damaging wind and hail threat as well. So it could be a significant day, but it does look a little messy on the HRRR, which could be a little concerning for a severe weather threat overall. Now look at the 9Z HRRR for the same time frame. You can see at 0Z tonight, you can see there's really no storms except for mainly Minnesota, but eventually those clear up early in the morning. You can see we had a potential early storm or two across northern North Dakota, although nothing too significant. By the time we get to around 20Z, you can see some storms starting to fire. And by the time we get to 22Z, you can see some supercells even trying to fire in western South Dakota and western North Dakota. Eventually those mix into a linear and supercell development, basically hybrid there, and they slowly move east into Minnesota. it's kind of low resolution, so it's kind of hard to see, but it also looks kind of messy on this model, so this could be concerning and lower our overall severe weather threat, which would be good for all of these people here. Anyways, that is the end of today's weather forecast. If you're in the enhanced risk of severe weather, tomorrow, Wednesday, or Thursday, make sure to pay attention to my channel for future updates, and please consider subscribing to my channel and turning on notifications so you are alerted when I have a new weather forecast out. Also, I will be going live on tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday for the severe weather threat. Tomorrow I will be going live at 3 p.m. I do not know about the other days, but I will let you guys know on future YouTube shorts and future weather forecasts as well. And if you're in South Central Mexico and portions of Central America that I mentioned, make sure to pay attention to the tropical storm and the future tropical system that could bring some pretty heavy rainfall that could be life-threatening in some areas. And I will see you on the next weather forecast. Goodbye.